Let's have a look at the wiring diagram. Okay, we've got our battery here, negative to the chassis of the car. Now, the high beam is fed through a relay, which is not shown here for simplicity, from a high beam control switch, right? So in most cars that's mounted on the steering wheel column. Okay, so if we close that high beam switch to turn the high beam on, the current flows along here through the light bulb to the earth, and then from the chassis earth back to the negative terminal. Alright, now we want to put in driving lights. We want the driving lights to be turned on only when high beam is activated. So obviously to do that we have to control the driving light relay, which is this thing here, from a wire which is only alive, it's only powered up when high beam is on. Okay, so we find a suitable spot. It'll be somewhere either near the battery or near the battery fuse control box, or on its way to the high beam itself. We find a spot in the cable where we can peel very gently and carefully, peel the plastic off the cable, locating the positive lead to the high beam. And then we solder, see this joint here, we solder a thin cable onto that and then bind that up again with tape so it's not the metal's not exposed. Okay, so the switch we've got on the keyboard, on the dashboard, is powered up. All right, so when we close the control switch, current flows from the battery through the switch to the relay solenoid and then out to earth. And once current is flowing through the solenoid, a magnetic field is developed and closes that relay switch, which is pretty high ampage. It can carry a very high current loading. So we've got a thick cable into the relay, thick cable out of the relay to the driving light and to chassis earth. Okay, now this is essentially what you need if you're going to set up driving lights. Now a lot of driving lights come with a harness, and you'll find this same basic circuit is built into the harness. In this video we're going to talk about installing driving lights in a Nissan Xtrail T31. Now, as you can see, this car came to me with a mounting point already installed, right? So I'm going to mount the lights here and here. I shopped on eBay for the lights. My friends advised me to get 7-inch diameter lights, even though I initially thought they were too big, and I was thinking of going for 5-inch, but I was persuaded that that wasn't a great idea. Now, one of the things I found is that the no-name lights like this are very much cheaper, and of course they carry a smaller guarantee than the high brand names. But this This unit looks to me to be quite solidly made. It only has a 1-year guarantee. The upmarket competitors for the same specifications in terms of light strength and range come in at $600 instead of, this one was $150, so that's more than 4 times the price. This one also came with a wiring harness, which partly will be very handy, partly I won't use. Essentially the circuitry is very simple. You've got to have some sort of a switch inside the car where the driver can control whether he wants or she wants the driving lights on or off. Now, as it turns out, there are two blank panels here for switches. So one of these is going to be the obvious place for a switch. Now the switch is going to have 2 wires coming in. It has to get its feed from the positive terminal, which will feed the high beam lights. Now that means that taking the feed from the high beam lights means that the driving lights can never be on unless the driving lights are also on. In Australia, that's required by law. Now, obviously, you've got to get a wire, 2 wires actually, from the switch here through the firewall, the bulkhead, and into the engine compartment. Now that is really the only tricky issue in the whole installation. So how do we do that? Well, what I did was I ran the 2 wires. There were 2 wires on the other side of this, and I ran them underneath here, across over here, because I wanted to head for the passenger compartment. Going over the glove box securing points again. So it's held in by clips here and here. They just pull out, and here and here. They just pull out. Now, you do have to remove 8 screws. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the 2 screws holding the clip in here, and here. Here is the space where the glove box used to sit. So we've removed the glove box and exposed a rubber grommet in here. Now, ignore that, that's the light for the glove box. So what we've got is a rubber grommet here, which gives us access, or gives our wire access to the engine compartment. Now what I've done here is I've pushed a small piece of plastic tube, there it is there, I pushed that through into the engine compartment. and that's really just to protect our wire. Here's the wire. So there's the black side of the wire, and on the other side is the red side of the wire here. Now the red side is being fed by the high beam headlight when it's switched on. The red wire goes to the dash panel. Here it is here. The second from the left is a two-way switch. Now when that two-way switch is on, in other words, when we want the driving lights to be on, that switch will feed current back down the black wire, which is that one there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to feed this wire, whoops, now as you can see, I'm feeding that wire through the protective plastic tube, and that wire should appear in the engine compartment. Let's go and have a look. Okay, so here is that protective plastic tube. It's coming out from the grommet that's in there, and here's our wire that we push through. Right, so it's actually very close to the left-hand headlight, passenger side headlight, where we're going to pick up the signal from the high beam. Now the reason the two wires from the control switch, they're the two wires that I showed you, which the driver uses to control the lights. Now the reason that I wanted to head over to the passenger compartment was that behind the glove box, now I've already removed the glove box here, it's very easy to remove. You can see here there's just a few screws here. The screws are fairly obvious now, and it's easy to pull out. So once you get the glove box removed, now here we go. So before we go on to more details, here is the glove box itself. Came out very easily. I found that it does have an internal light. I wasn't expecting that. And that as you can see, that is the door to the glove box, which also comes out remarkably easily. It's held in by these clips here, and these little clips here, so that comes out. Now getting back to the passenger side at the front, so here is the insulation on the firewall, this grey stuff. That is the light I mentioned. which plugs into a light in the glove box. And this here, that where I'm shining the light, that let's get into a closer look. That is a rubber grommet, quite a large rubber grommet, and you can see the cable. That's the standard light control cable, part of the Nissan as it comes from the shop. Now that's come through this grommet here, this black thing, and I have made a little hole beside the existing hole that carries this cable. So I've made a little hole for that, and I've pushed the two wires. Here are the two wires connected to the driving light. So I've pushed those through into the engine compartment. Now, in order to protect the cable, now this, can you see my fingers are on a piece of tube here? You can see the cable from the inside switch has been protected by this tube. So I pushed a piece of tube which I just found in my workshop. I pushed that through that rubber grommet that I showed you on the firewall. It came up here, and there are the two wires. Now those wires, once they're connected to the relay, will control the action of the lights as described in the circuit diagram. Now, I should have filmed this a bit earlier, but the relay is actually under there. It's held in by a screw. And the wires that exit the relay heading for the driving lights, I've just dropped them straight down from where I am here. So I've got the relay under there. So I've just dropped those wires straight down behind the radiator, and then up they come here, just where I want them to connect to the driving lights. Just getting back to the relay. The relay needs to be connected to the positive and the negative terminal of the battery. Now, that's the power supply wire coming out of the relay. I actually used the front part of the wiring harness for this because it seemed convenient. There's that one I mentioned earlier that's dropping down to the lights themselves, the driving lights themselves. So it was already fitted with a fuse, that's important. And up here you can see there's the negative terminal of the battery, taking the negative terminal from the relay. Now, following the red wire, we've got the red wire again connected to the positive terminal, black wire to the negative terminal. Okay, and here is the first test. As you can see, both high beam headlights are showing. here and here. I've only got one driving light installed, and there it is, and it's working. So all good.